Today our topic will be over adding integers. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So we're going to add them, put them together. Let's read our real world connection. When Mr. Achicho was the running back for the Hastings Bears varsity football team, he ran 18 yards. However, the defensive lineman pushed him back by 20 yards. Where was he on the football field? So let's see. He ran 18 yards. Would you classify that as a positive or negative? Ran 18 yards. That's a good thing. Positive 18. We're going to put it with, then he was pushed back by 20 yards. Pushed back by 20 yards. Is that a good, positive, or a negative? He's going back, so that's negative 20. So let's see. We have 18 positives and 20 negatives. Do we have more positives or do we have more negatives here? We have more negatives. By how many? How many more negatives do you have than positive? We have more negative 2 yards. So we have 2 more negatives than positives. So that is the first answer, yards. You can easily tell that Mr. Joe is an athlete. When Mr. Joe was the water boy for the Elsick Rams varsity football team, the cheerleaders pushed him back 8 yards. Oh, that's not good. Then the mascot, which are the Rams, pushed him back 6 yards. That's not good again. I didn't do a good job, did I? Where was he on the football field? So he was pushed back 8 yards. Definitely negative. Then the mascot pushed him back 6 yards. Ooh, another negative. How would you rate his play? First of all, he was 8 negative, and then he got pushed back even more. I think he did a really bad job. I did a bad job. So I know it's going to be negative by how many. So he was 8 yards back, then he pushed back 6 more. So he's farther down the negative, in the number line, the negative side. Negative 14. In a few seconds, we're going to go answer why it is so. So negative 14 yards. So let's go to our example. Let's start with the first example. What is positive 3 put together with 5 positive? Another way to write that is 3 plus 5. Of course, you're going to quickly say, oh, 3 plus 5 is 8. But why is that so? Let's use our algebra tile. This is something that you will be seeing throughout your high school and junior high career. You have 3 positive. So I'll show 3 positive. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put it together with 5 more positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you say I have left here? I have 8 positive. So the answer must be positive 8. Is it okay to write just 8? Of course. Positive 8 is the same as just 8. How would you represent this from algebra tiles into a number line? My first number, integer, is positive 3. So I'm going to draw an arrow to positive 3. Will positive be here or here? Well, positive will be right here. So I need to draw an arrow to positive 3. Let me draw our second integer is positive 5. So I need to go draw a positive arrow. So representing this way. So more positive arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So where did I end up at? At positive 8. And our last example is intuitive. Let's do a storyline. This is how I do integers. I don't really sit here trying to memorize rules. I try to make it more counterintuitive. This summer, big World Cup. Imagine you're a soccer coach. You have good players and bad players on your soccer team. All teams have them. Sometimes players get injured, so you have to put together or add more players. Sometimes they're going to be good, sometimes they're going to be bad. So they might change the dynamics of your team. So you started with 3 good players on your team. Yay. You put 5 more good players on your team. Better players. How will you rate that team now as a coach? If I started with 3 good players and I put 5 more good players on a team, that team's going to be great. By how many? Great by 8. Positive 8. So we have 8 good players, positive 8. Next example, -4 put together with -1 can also be represented this way. So we use our algebra tiles. You have 4 negatives. You put it with 1 more negative. What do you see here? What do you have in all? Looks like I have 5 negatives. Will that be the answer? Is -4 plus -1 -5? Let's draw a number line to see another representation. First integer is -4. I need to draw an arrow to the negative side. 4 negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then our second integer is -1. So I need to draw 1 more negative. Would that be would the arrow face this way or this way? This way. What number is that? What integer is that? -5. Hey, let's use our soccer example. Intuitive. Try to do it in your head. You have 4 bad players on your team. You put 1 more bad player on that team. As a coach, how will you rate your team? If I start with 4 bad players and I've added another bad player, isn't the team going to get worse? Worse by how many? How many bad players are you going to have now in all? 5 bad players. Because your team was 4 bad players, but then you added another bad player. Got pretty bad by 5, -5. Next example. 5 good players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're going to put 2 negatives. What can you tell me about this picture? It's weird. We have positives and negatives. Let's look at these closely. This +1, and let's look at this -1. If you have a +1 and a -1, wouldn't they just cancel out? Because isn't +1 opposite -1? They just cancel out to each other. It's called additive inverse. Another one is called 0 pairs. They cancel out. These two cancel out. These two cancel out because you have a +1 and -1. What do you have remaining left? 3 positives. How would you represent that on a number line if you choose to answer these through number line? Our first integer is 5 positive, so we need to draw an arrow to 5 positive. Our second integer is 2 negative. So if I'm going to draw a 2 negative, it needs to face to the negative side. So I go 2 negative. 1, 2. What number do you see right there? 3. +3. Let's try to make it counterintuitive inside your brain. You're a soccer coach. You have 5 good players in your team. You're putting 2 bad players in your team. How would you rate your team? Did your team get good? Is your team good or bad? It's still good. Still good because you have 5 good players, but then you put 2 bad players. But good by how many? You're good by 3. +3. So you have 3 good players still left on your team. Because remember, a good player and a bad player will cancel each other out. Let's try our next example. You have 4 negatives. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have 3 positive. 1, 2, 3. So that's using our algebra tiles. What can you say about this negative and positive here? They cancel out. It's called 0 pair. They 0 out. 0 out. 0 out. What do you have left? We have -1. How will you represent this through a number line? Let's see. Our first integer is -4. So I need to draw an arrow, negative arrow to -4. Our second integer is +3. I need to draw an arrow to 3 positive. 1, 2, 3. What can you tell me about this? Answer is -1. How would you represent this counterintuitive? You're a coach. You have 4 bad players on your team. Then you added 3 good players in team. Tell me about your team now. As a coach, what would you say? Well, we did start off with 4 bad players. Now we have 3 good players. We're still pretty bad. Not that bad. We're bad by 1. Oh, -1. So let's go through this example. What happens if you have three integers, like 5 plus -2 plus, I don't know, 4. Let's use our algebra tiles. You have 5 positives, 2 negatives, 4 more positives, and there. Does anything cancel out here? Well, these two cancel out, 0 pair. These two cancel out, 0 pair. What do you have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positive is our answer. Let's draw it with a number line. You start out with 5 positive. So our first integer is 5 positive. Our second integer is -2. So I need to draw an arrow to the negative, facing negative by 2. Our third integer is +4. So we draw a positive arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what number do you see? 7. And last but not least, let's try to make a storyline. You have 5 good players in your team. You put 2 bad players on your team. Then you put 4 good players. So see, I've started with 5 good players. You know what? I'm going to combine like terms. I'm going to combine all my good players together. 5 good players with 4 good players is 9 good players. Then I put 2 bad players on that team. So I'm still good. Still good. I have a lot of good players still left. I take away 2. So I'm good by 7. 9 good players with 2 bad players. You're still good. Good by how many? +7. In our last example, let's find examples here. Let's match. A quick match. 65 negatives put together with 35 positive. All right, soccer coach. I'm going to try to do it intuitively. I have 65 bad players on my team. I'm putting 35 good players. Will my team be bad or good at the end? Bad. Bad by how many? Let's say I know I will have more bad players. I think I'm going to have 30 more bad players than good players. Oh, right here. Let's try another example. I have 7 bad players. I'm put it with 25 bad players. As a soccer coach, how would you rate that team? It's got them from bad to worse. So it's going to be a lot of negative numbers, a lot of negative players. So 7 bad players, I'll put them with 25 more bad players. I think that's going to be 31 negative. It's a bad team. No, I'm sorry, 32. Right here, 32 negative. Let's go here. You have 2 positive. If you do not like the soccer story, we can actually draw them. You have 2 positive. You have 64 negatives. So these 2 will zero out. You're going to have a lot of negative. How many negatives do you think you're going to have left? I think we're going to have 62 negatives right here. Let's go here. We have 18 negatives with 8 positive with 4 negatives. Let's combine all our negatives. We have 18 negatives with 4 negatives. So you have 18 bad players. You put them with 4 worse players. It's going to be bad by 22. So it'll be -22. You're going to put them with 8 positive numbers. We have more positive, more negative. More negative by how many? Let's see. -14. And it goes right here. And so on. So the main thing you need to know about for adding integers is, will you have more positives or will you have more negatives? And from there you can decide what you can do. For example, if you have all negatives, the answer will be negative. Combine them. If you have positive and negative, you're going to have to figure out which one do you have more of. You have more positive, more negative. And then you find a difference. But try to make it more intuitive. Try to look at it and think of a storyline to help you out on this. So this is the study of adding integers.